Are you struggling to find friends in your life? When I was a kid, I was pretty normal and pretty well socialized. But that kind of started to change somewhere around middle school and high school. This was when social media was becoming more of a thing, the internet was more accessible, video games, television, things like that were all becoming more significant in my life and in the world. And it affected me as it affected many other people. And it may be affecting you now. The consequence of all this stuff is I gradually got more awkward, more isolated. I spent more time indoors instead of out hanging out with friends. And gradually, things kind of drifted apart. People I used to spend a lot of time with, I didn't see so much anymore. And it was because I spent all day indoors, playing video games, watching TV, watching YouTube videos, things like that. This continued on until high school. High school was a bit of a mixed bag for me. On one hand, I sometimes did not have a lot of friends. And I didn't spend much time hanging out. Oh, let me say that again. You could say I had a lot of friends and acquaintances from school. I was on the debate team, and so I knew a lot of people there and had some really fun times with them. But outside of school, I didn't really do much to contact them. And this was really my own fault because I didn't spend time hanging out with them. I didn't make an effort to do anything interesting. I would go to school, hang out with people there, and then go home and, I don't know, play video games or something, or watch TV, or watch YouTube videos. And it led to kind of having friendships that were not quite as deep as they probably should have been in order to be truly healthy. And this is not a knock against any of them. They are really great people. It's a knock against who I was at the time. And my unwillingness, and eventually what turned into an inability to hang out with people, to initiate things that we could do together. This only seemed to get worse in college. While I didn't move away from my hometown, a lot of my friends did when they moved on. And so, I lost contact with a lot of my high school friends. And I wasn't living on campus, so I didn't necessarily feel much of a need to go and to become friends with people at college. Now, there were a couple people here and there, but really I didn't make any effort to befriend anyone. Really, I didn't feel like I needed to. I felt like I would be fine just going to class, studying, taking the tests, and going home. And it was really kind of this arrogant mindset that I didn't need anyone else, that I was fine on my own. But really, it wasn't the truth. It was out of fear. Truth is, I was anxious to talk to people. It was a lot of effort, and I wasn't really familiar with it at this point. I'd really fallen off in that regard. I couldn't really do it as much anymore, and when I tried, I was really afraid. And so, for several years of college, I really did not have any friends. Which, is really awful to say now, but I didn't really think of it that way even. I thought I was fine without them. I didn't really need to meet new people. And I don't know why I thought this way. Like, it's really irrational because, like, the benefits of, like, friendship are, like, quite clear. Like, not just socially, but it affects your mental health as well. And it affects your physical health even. People who are more lonely feel more stressed. They have more trouble doing things. They have more anxiety. Their mental health is just not in a good place. It affects everything when you're feeling lonely and don't have many close acquaintances. But for whatever reason, I didn't realize all of that stuff. If I had heard these studies, I completely dismissed them. Thought I was different somehow. That I was totally fine. That this was just the way I was. I was introverted. I didn't need to talk to people or hang out with people or anything like that. I could make it on my own. I was an idiot. What can I say? It seems so stupid now, but this is what I was thinking. And, you know, deep down, I probably knew that it hurt me. That was bad. As you probably do now. But, you know, I kept going on. And this period of life lasted several years for me. But, thankfully, it didn't last forever. The big thing that changed in my life was getting accepted into the film program. Now, I'm not sure where it happened, but at some point things changed, you know? I started talking to more people, meeting people, doing things, and I found people who became acquaintances and then friends who I would consider. And now I've got a whole bunch of friends, honestly. It's really awesome. I met a ton of people now. And in my school and in my classes, and there's just so many people that it's so awesome that I was able to meet. That just a couple of years ago, I probably wouldn't have been able to at all. So, what changed? How was I able to go from someone who was a loner with no friends and struggling with the loneliness, even if I didn't admit it, into someone who had a bunch of friends and, in my opinion, doing socially pretty good now? What changed that caused that transformation? I attribute it mostly to three things. 1, the activities that I was doing. 2, taking more initiative in social situations. And 3, changing how I was so that I could become someone who people wanted to be friends with. So, the first thing I did was I started doing more interesting things. Because let's be honest, most people, especially high quality people, aren't going to have fun sitting on their butt all day, staying indoors. It's just not something that is energizing. It's not something people find fun. So what changed for me was I started getting into filmmaking. Suddenly, I went from spending my time indoors, playing video games and watching TV and stuff, to working on sets and learning filmmaking with people. And simply by virtue of doing this more interesting activity, suddenly people wanted to hang out with me. I had people surrounding me who, with a common goal, who we could work together to do cool things. And that's my first point. If you want to attract people to become friends with you, you need to do interesting things. And it doesn't have to be things like filmmaking. It can be as simple as going on a hike sometimes, or learning mountain biking, or playing a sport, or something like that. And it can be frightening to get into a new thing, but you're not going to meet people if you're not doing interesting things in the first place. 2, I attributed a lot of my success to taking initiative. Because the truth is, most of the time, you're not just going to get picked up out of nowhere and become friends with someone. Oftentimes, you have to make the first step. And this can be very frightening, especially for someone who, started out isolated and not doing things. But you have to make the first move a lot of the time. Because someone has to. And why shouldn't it be you? But basically, taking initiative is really helpful. If you invite someone else to do something with you, or start a conversation, or start talking to people. Because if you're not taking the initiative yourself and initiating those conversations that build friendships, chances are they're going to pass you by. Number 3, and this is another really big thing I attribute, is changing myself. Because 2 years ago, when I was struggling with this loneliness, the truth is, I wasn't exactly a person people would want to be friends with. Especially high quality people. Because, it's one thing, there are people who will settle for just about anybody to be friends with. But if your idea of a good time is to eat an entire thing of pizza and play Halo all day, you're not going to necessarily attract high quality people to be friends with you. People who like going to the gym or working on film sets or doing cool stuff are not going to be interested in being friends with someone who's a loser who spends their time indoors all day. And that's not a knock against indoors. There's lots of interesting stuff you can do indoors. It's the laziness I want to focus on there. It's the laziness and the poor character that really drives people away. And even if people aren't driven away, the people who aren't going to be driven away by someone like that are going to be other people like that. And truthfully, when you're really lonely, it can feel important to have people like that even, that it's a step up from loneliness. But I'm not so sure. But if you want to attract high quality people into your life, you need to be a high quality person yourself. If you're a loser, if you're a toxic person, people aren't going to want to be around you. And that's honestly what I was at the time. Which is a bit harsh to say about my past self, but it's true. But once I made the effort to change myself, even before I was consciously on self-improvement and consciously trying to become a better person, making adjustments to working a bit harder, learning new skills, being more honest and more diligent, things like that are what began to attract other people into my life, and what caused other people to take notice and be willing to be friends with me. And once I started taking care of myself and going to the gym and really working hard and really trying to accomplish stuff, that's when most of my friends that I currently have came around. Once they saw a decent to high quality person, then they were willing to hang out with me. They took an interest in me. So, for my story, those are my key takeaways that I want to give to you. If you're struggling with loneliness and want to make new friends, you need to do 3 things. 1, do interesting stuff that people want to do with you. Even if nobody's around, do it on your own. But it will begin to attract people into your life with similar interests. 2, often you need to take initiative. It's very rare that people are going to make that first step to become your friend. You need to be the one who starts that conversation. And number 3, you need to become a person that people want to be friends with. There's a lot of leeway, and people will understand that sometimes you have flaws and you're working to improve yourself. But you need to be working on improving yourself. Good people with good values and good mindsets are not going to want to be friends with you if you're a loser or toxic or lazy. You need to be a good person. While there is a lot more to social skills than just these 3 things, I believe if you try these, they will get you a lot of the way to conquering your loneliness and becoming more social. They worked for me at the very least. And really, I wasn't so different then to where you might be now. Don't give up and don't lose hope.